Welcome to Evolving Ideas. I'm Elaine Smitha. James Gilliland is in the studio with me, and we're going to be discussing his experiences at Trout Lake, Washington. And he has had sightings of UFOs, he's had a near-death experience, and he's had knowledge given to him about earth changes. And we're going to do our best to cover these things on tonight's show. Join me in welcoming James Gilliland. Thank you for coming up here from Trout Lake, Washington, to be with us here. You had a near-death experience. We've had other guests on this show who have had near-death experiences. Tell us about yours.
Mine was very similar to the ones you often hear about. It was a drowning. It happened about 20 years ago, and it completely changed my life. We were out body surfing. It was about 8-foot waves. And
where was this?
It was down a little place called Little Corona, next to the Wedge in California.
Oh,
Just quite a while ago. And they had these sneaker waves come in, and there was no warning, and it went from about 8-foot waves to 24-foot waves in just an instant. And
I could see how you could get weighted under, because when we lived down in California, be out there in the waves, why they would really come up, and they can take your breath away and bury
Well, there was nowhere to go with these, because they pulled all the water out, and we were probably a quarter mile out, almost a half mile out on a sandbar, and the water went out, and then this big wall comes up, and you understand what a fly feels like when it hits you, because it hit so hard it dislocated my shoulder and
really
knocked the wind out of me and just held me under forever. And then after about the third wave that hit me and held me, the second wave I came up, and I still couldn't breathe because my diaphragm was collapsed. And then after the third wave, you just gave up. You know, you have to breathe, even if you're underwater. And then I went through the tunnel that everybody talks about. In my case, it was a little different. I saw levels as I went through them. I didn't stop and talk. A lot of people stop, and they'll talk, and they'll see relatives and things. I went straight through these levels real fast and ended up in what I can only call a golden white light of just pure bliss. It wasn't a physical level. It was a level where you were really a light principle and not physical anymore. But
and so how long were you out?
I don't know about that part.
How did you get retrieved? I mean, what happened? They wash you up on the beach
Yeah,
or
actually,
something?
that's what happened. Even the lifeguards weren't coming in and getting people, and the friend I was out with, he actually got thrown over the jetty and got hurt really bad on the rocks and everything.
Gosh.
And I don't know what happened between that third wave, where I was pretty far out in the ocean, to the time I was on the beach. It was just after the experiencing the light, the next thing, I had a nice conversation with what I call the source, or whatever you want to call it. And
as good as any.
Yeah, and I had to undo all my previous training about the nature of God or source because of that experience. And after the conversation, the last words I heard was I wanted to come back and talk to people about the true nature of source, what it is.
Well, I think that seems to be a natural inclination, that when you've had an experience of what we might call enlightenment, that it's so exhilarating and so blissful that you do want to share with others, because you like for others to be able to have that experience without maybe having to go through a drowning or, you know. So I'm sure that you felt that impetus to do that.
At first I didn't want to come back. I wanted to stay.
That's, I hear this a lot.
That was the first question I asked, was how can I stay? And I got an answer. It said I never told one of my children when to come or go. That's free will. And so I floated in this light for a while, and the second question I asked was, how do I earn the right to stay here because of my upbringing? And I was raised in a small desert town and went to a Catholic church. It was the only church school there. A little town called Apple Valley in the high desert.
In California. Yes.
In Southern California. And so the next question I asked was, how can I earn the right to stay? And
so why did you think you had to have a right?
Well, because of my upbringing. That's
well, what's different about your upbringing?
Well, it's Catholic, you know.
Well, what's that got to do with anything?
You have to earn the love of God, or earn,
golly.
you know,
so
all
you
that
brought the dogma to
Exactly, yeah. You still have your own consciousness, even though you're in this total blissful light. There's still
you have an awareness.
An awareness of self that has to kind of be still reprogrammed a little bit. So
a lot of guilt.
Exactly, yeah.
Like.
And the voice came back, and it just said, you can't earn what is given freely and unconditionally. And so the third question I asked was, well, how can I serve? Because you just want to give something back when you experience this bliss.
Well, that's a Catholic dogma too, you know.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, not just that. It's with any enlightenment process. I see that once you make that connection, all you want to do is give. Mm-hmm. You shift from service into service mode.
Well, I can see that you could come to that on reflection. I'm not sure that in a moment of drowning that you would have that kind of awareness that, oh, suddenly you have this need to serve. It sounds like maybe you've reflected on
You're not even in the body at this time.
No, but I mean, it sounds like this is a reflection that occurred after the event, and perhaps...
No, it was during the event.
No, but I mean the depth of what you're feeling about.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling like you have to serve.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
How can you share what you've known or had this experience? I could see where this would be valid in that moment.
Well, the last question, there was no answer to that when I said, how can I serve? I just stayed there floating in this blissful light for quite a while. And they call it being cradled in the arms of God or Source when this happens to you. And when you come back from that experience, it didn't... Really, that's what you want to do. You just want to share what the true nature is and kind of dispel the old images of what God is.
I can see that. So, did they have to resuscitate you and pump the water out of your lungs and all that kind of thing?
What happened was, the last thing I said was, how can I serve? And the voice just came back and said, what brings you joy? What makes you happy?
I love it.
And then I said, well, it would really make me happy to go back and kind of dispel the old images, the old guilt, the old fear, the old intimidation, all the old things, and talk about the true nature of Source. And the last things I heard were, as you wish. And the next thing I know, I was back in my body, but I was still half conscious. And there was people pulling on me, pulling me out. And I remember vaguely somebody saying, do you want an ambulance? Do you want help? And I said, no. And I really should have gotten one.
Golly, James.
I really should have gotten one. I'm just real independent that way. And I just said, no, help. There's a lot of other people there pulling out of the water because it hit a lot of people. And I said no. And I remember getting up on the sand and just collapsing, passing out, and waking up, just water everywhere. There's all water coming out of my lungs and everywhere. And when I woke up, they were calling my name. The lifeguards were looking for me. And when I finally came to, I talked to the lifeguard and got a lecture about the buddy system and everything, like I wasn't there for my buddy, you know. And
oh, your buddy wasn't there for you.
Yeah, or whatever. And I had to go to the hospital and talk to him and keep him from going into shock because he was torn up really bad.
Yeah, because he'd gone onto the jetty.
Yeah. So I went straight from there to the hospital, which I wasn't in that good a shape myself either. So.
No, don't you find? I mean, I've heard this from other people, that we have a sense that that we have so much power over ourselves that that when we're injured, we say we're okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? But you see, spiritually, you are okay, even though the body could be beat up. But I find that that we tend not to recognize the physical condition in a moment like that. I've heard so many people, and even myself, I've said, oh, no, I'm okay, you know, when I was right near death, you know, I'm okay, you know, and here you are going through the same thing. So what happened as a result of this? You pondered this experience with this new level of awareness, and how did that translate into the UFO phenomena for you?
What happened, it started probably about a 20-year quest. And I studied with a lot of different master teachers.
In what regard?
Spirituality, basically. I wasn't even looking for UFOs.
You were just trying to find who you were.
Well, I was trying to reconnect with the Source again, like the near-death experience, and make that connection again. And so I started studying with a lot of kind of new thought people, and then I went and studied with some yogis for 6 years, did that.
Oh, did you? Where was that, here in the States? Or
it was in Northern California, actually. And then I studied with a Lama for a little while, and I kept learning. Basically, I even studied some Native American spirituality too, and I just found that the universal principles are within all teachings.
It's true.
And all the master teachers that came throughout each culture came through with the same messages, and then they were altered by kings and institutions afterwards. And and that was part of my path, was learning all the different cultures and all the different expressions. And,
I feel that truth is pervasive through all of it. And I think you came to a good realization in recognizing that it has been clouded and altered by mankind, actually. Yeah,
there's over 11,000
religions
or something like that, and because there's 11,000 images and experiences, and everybody wrote them down. So it's
interesting. So, well, how did you get involved with the UFOs then? What was your first encounter with that? How did you know that you even had this?
The first time I was doing an all-day meditation, and I started a center 10 years ago at the base of Mount Adams. And
that's down near Trout Lake.
Trout Lake, Washington. And I had a lot of alone time there building the center. The journey itself was just incredible, building it. It was, you know, whether it takes off or whatever isn't important. It was the journey that was the best. But
that's true of all of life.
Yeah, but I took a day off, and I did an all-day meditation, and I felt this energy come into me, and it was speaking to me, and it felt just like one of the masters that were appearing to me on the inner levels, because even though I was being taught on the outer levels by master teachers, the inner levels I was being taught as well. The first one that appeared to me was Jesus, actually, because all the rest were spooks to me. I don't want to, these other beings, I just said, I don't know, and I didn't feel safe around him, and he was the first one. And then he brought Babaji to me, and then I started studying Eastern thought with the yogis and the lamas, and then they brought White Eagle in, and then I started studying Native American, and I saw the basic principles in each teaching. I'll show you the real funny story that happened. There was I was at a medicine wheel with a woman, and her father was a Baptist minister. And I didn't know this, but she felt this medicine wheel was so right, and she was doing the medicine wheel, and at the end she did a meditation where she would do a prayer, and we'd all meditate. And I looked up after the meditation, and standing right behind her here's Jesus manifesting. You can see him clairvoyantly. The other people couldn't see him, and presiding over a medicine wheel. And I just went, oh, man, here I go again. You know, it's all the same. They're all interchangeable, and I told her about it, and she just started crying, and I go, what's wrong? And she said she goes, my father's a Baptist minister, and I knew this was right, and that it's interchangeable, spirit's interchangeable. And it really opened her up to go forward even more on her path. But
did you learn in all of your adventures that when you're talking about the spirit being, representing in different forms, that it's really all the same spirit, but we've just given different names to them?
Yes, it's actually, they're all focal points. There's only one mind in the universe, or one consciousness, source. And we're all focal points within that consciousness. And some represent different attributes of the one consciousness, the way I see it. And rather than worship a master or an image or a saint or whatever, it's better to become one. Look at the ideal that they represented and find that ideal within self. And that's what
I think that is the learning, to apply it to your life, and to recognize that you have the potential. I think every single one of us has that potential.
Exactly. The way the UFOs came into it was, I was on a spiritual quest, basically, and it was a meditation, and they came in and they sounded just like a master. And the information they were giving me was about the earth, things we need to do to change. They told me a lot about changes in the consciousness of man that need to occur, economic changes and earth changes that would be coming up.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I'm also interested in your visitations. You've had visits from UFOs.
Yeah, that comes... It just comes with the territory with spirituality. Once you get out of your boxes and start expanding into interdimensional mind, they appear. And like I was saying before, they won't appear unless you're ready for it. Unless you really have the consciousness for it, they're not going to connect with you.
Well, there wouldn't be any reason for them to come.
No, there isn't. They have a real non-interference policy, and until you have the consciousness.
They must be making lots of visits because the consciousness is raising all over.
Oh, they're popping in everywhere. There's so many people.
There must be a lot of them here.
The problem is that the clarity of the contactee. the contactee will always flavor their experience with their belief system. And so it's just like spirit. Babaji has a wonderful message. He always says that, man always adds fear to God's message, or man adds his belief system to God's message. And it's the same thing with contactees. There are people that have a victim consciousness, and they'll have a victim experience, and that's the way they see things.
So the ones who have these mentally debilitating experiences are because you say they have a victim consciousness?
Well, there are beings out there that on the lower echelons, you might say, of the ET connection, that I don't want to spend a lot of time with this, but what happened is their whole race is dying. They went totally into mental, and they blocked out the emotional energies, and that caused their body to atrophy because they cut themselves off from the life force. And what they did, and they're basically cloned, and they're trying to genetically upgrade their race and breed emotions back into their civilization.
I've heard this before. Would these be the Greys?
Yes. And so what they did is they grabbed a few humans. It's been going on for a long time, and they got their seed, and they've been creating half and halves. And in the long run, it's going to turn out really good because they're half human, and they will actually be intervening and helping through some of the earth changes, because this has been going on for hundreds of years, so it hasn't.
It's not
an
anything
old
brand
thing.
new.
Yeah. So there's some very, very old wise beings out there that know they're half human, and they also have the consciousness to set novas into motion and things like that.
Gosh, interesting.
So they'll be helping out. But there was, when they did grab people, they didn't understand emotions because they didn't have any. They had no reference points, so they didn't understand all the trauma they were creating, for one thing, and they're just down to business. They're like scientists, and they got what they needed and left. But that area is such a small part of the puzzle. The really big area that's going on right now, there's 3 other groups that are really involved here that have been coming to us. And like I said before, they feel just like a Christed master when you connect with them.
Well, who are they? Do they have names?
One is the Pleiadians, or Plejarians. It's that group. And actually, the Pleiades isn't really where they live. They do a jump there. That's a dimensional jump, and they go into a whole different universe. But that's the only reference point they can give us that we would understand. There's another group from Orion, from that system, that comes in. And these 2 groups are just like us. They're most of all, they're kind of Nordic looking. They've also assimilated other races into their culture, so they're kind of a mix.
I've heard that the Orions seem to have more of a negative aspect to them. Is that bad rap for them?
That is a bad rap. It's people are looking at ancient records or ancient history. I mean, even the Pleiadians had a bad experience. I mean, and if you look back, they had their wars, they had devastation. The Atlantis and Lemuria, or Mu, that was a war between the 2 factions from the Pleiades, that 2 colonies. So, I mean, that pretty much almost ended life. Everybody had to start over as primitives on the planet.
So what's the third one? Is that the Zeta Reticulans?
No, the Andromedans.
Oh, the Andromedans.
Yeah, the Zetas are just, they're kind of like, they're pretty much out of here right now. They've gotten what they need. You're not going to see much of them anymore. Now and then maybe, but.
So would you say that the Pleiadians and the Orions and the Andromedans are all good ones? So why are we hearing so much about the evil ones that are, trying to disrupt Earth and take over Earth?
Mainly because evil always gets the mainstream press. It's unfortunately, but the negativity always takes off like a rocket, and the good stuff just kind of gets put on the back burner. But there are rogue elements out there.
I would think so. I've always felt that the aliens were just a mix like humans, because we have good and we have evil here, and I would think that it would model that same thing in another dimension.
It's as above, so below. So if I were to go to Europe and travel across Europe, and let's say I met a Frenchman and the guy was real negative towards me, do I say all Frenchmen are negative, or an Italian, or whatever? You can't do that. You could say in general, those people are really nice. There are some negative ones in that group.
Well, it sounds like, according to some recent information, that the government feels that there is an element that wants to attack Earth and take over Earth, and so the military is really out there to
Well, they see everything that way. That's
true.
Their reference points.
Yes, probably the military has to define who they are
Yeah.
and maintain it. Otherwise, they'd be out of a job, right?
Well, it's what's funny about these ships is there's nothing they can do about the Palladian or the Orion or the Andromedan ships. They're so far beyond. It's like going after a lion with a pea shooter. It's not a good idea. They can't shoot them down. These things are interdimensional. It's like trying to shoot a light down.
I think that really confuses them a lot. And
Yeah.
They don't know what to do with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, how do you chase something that will just disappear and then reappear behind you?
Yes, I know. Do you think that they have been manipulating us? Many people feel that humans have been manipulated to not necessarily express the finer points of humanity. And there are some viewpoints that express that they feel that this is the negative alien influence. And yet I have my own thoughts with regard to the fact that if they are so interdimensional and so far advanced in their own evolutionary station in this universe, that we're pawns. They could do anything they wanted to us. So if they really wanted to do something to us, they could have done a long time ago.
Well, it's the way I look at that is I've had not one negative experience with them. When I did plug into some of the Zetas, they would actually give me a headache. They were kind of aggressive with their energy, and I would push them out and just say no. If your brain is only functioning at 10%, you can be easily manipulated.
That's
if
true.
you're not awake. The one thing I've seen about there has been some manipulation. There was other kind of rogue groups that were here that were doing some manipulation, but a lot of that's pretty much ancient history, and whatever's left. About 10 years ago, a lot of that was just the remaining manipulating things were taken out by these other three groups. There's like a federation, you might say.
You mean Star Trek?
Very similar to Star Trek. There's quite a few involved in it. The main key players are the ones from the Pleiades and the Orion and the Andromedans, who are the big boys in the universe. They're 8 to 10 feet tall, and they're not physical. They have light bodies, and mythologically, we've called them archangels in the past. So, I mean, that's going to shock some people, but they've been overseeing us for a long time. They're exquisite beings. They're loving. They're compassionate. They're so evolved. All they care about is that we evolve, and that they want us to keep evolving and become and create our own God connection, basically, and start being kind to each other on the planet. That's their whole message. It's not real complicated.
Do you adhere to the tenet that we were created by them?
No, I wouldn't say so. It's so big. It's not just one thing. I'll tell you what happened. A long time ago, there was an ape man on this planet that was evolving naturally. Each planet has its form of humanity, you might say, and the body is just a physical adaptation to the environment. So there was an ape man here when the first star nations came, you might say. And yes, they added their seed to this ape man and jumped him up, biologically jumped him up. That's why there's no missing link.
Yes, but why do we only have 10% available in our brain when we have the capacity for much more?
Well, a lot of that is because there's a lot of reasons for that. What I'm saying is that we're a mix. We're a full mixture here of the ancient Atlanteans and Lemurians and this ape man that was jumped up. For thousands of years, we've been all intermixing and interbreeding, and so we're a big melting pot down here. We're a group that came from Sirius. We're part Syrian, too, so...
Well, then we could go on in this whole thing in another show talking about that kind of thing, but I think what we need to do is move on because you had some UFO footage that was taken by a friend of yours.
Yes,
Can you very quickly tell the story about your friend?
Well,
how this came about?
He came up for Randolph Winters when he came up and did his show, and then what he did is he didn't want to leave. He said, I feel really comfortable here. I really need to stay.
Was he at your house?
Yes.
I met him then.
You probably did, yeah. Yeah. And so we talked for a while, and he said, I really want to plug in. He said, I've been to all the ancient mystery schools, he's like, I know what Donnie is. He's very high up in Kung Fu and Tai Chi and Qigong. And he said, there's something missing. There's this missing element I want to plug into. And so we took him through a process we call it retroclearing, where we go back and we clear any past life trauma, birth trauma, or any wounds and patterns from age 1 to your present understanding. And when these are out of the way, you kind of blow open. You go into interdimensional mind and you make your contact. And so he contacted a feminine energy, a Pleiadian energy by the name of Blaji, who came in, who we've been working with quite a bit.
Blaji?
Blaji is her name. And he said it was, in his own words, he said it was 10,000 times stronger than anything he's ever experienced as far as the spiritual energies moving through him. And he sat there and cried and released, and it was very emotional opening for him. And then a couple days later, he said, you know, I'm hearing this voice in my head, and I think I'm going crazy. He said, they're telling me to take my camera on the plane, my video camera. And I said, well, there's a solution to that. I said, take your camera, and if they don't show up, you're crazy. Don't worry about it.
Was this a commercial airliner, or was it?
Commercial airliner.
And he was flying someplace?
Yeah, he was flying from Portland to L.A.
Oh.
And she already told us she was going to show up. And, I mean, it was a total setup, because the guy has a $9,000 video camera. He shows up at our place, you know. He was guided all the way through. And so he's filming out the window, and here this craft, the whole footage, we're just going to show a small clip of it, but it has part where it's metallic and it drops down on the left. And then it goes and moves over to the right and then reappears as a light ship. It actually shifts frequencies and goes into a light ship.
Okay.
So.
Well, maybe we have that clip ready to go in the studio that we can, or in the control room now, that we can put that on so we can show our viewers that footage. So I'm hoping that it'll come up here right away. There we go. So.
And this is just a still frame by frame of it, and what it does, this is after it's already dropped down and it's reappeared as a light vehicle. It's just pure light now. And there's an orange light that comes off. If you have a real good high-resolution TV, you can see this much better. But it will, there will be orange lights that shoot off underneath it as it's shape-shifting, and it goes from a disc shape to a cylinder. It shifts again after that into an arrowhead, and then it shifts into a hand. It makes a perfect hand. And then it shifts back into the disc and then moves off the screen. And we've had aeronautic engineers, pilots, professional photographers check this out, and then they all walked away scratching their head, just saying it's a UFO. It's under its own power. It's following the plane. It's not a weather balloon.
Isn't that interesting?
And it's
so is the shape shifting on this portion that we're viewing? So you're going to maybe have to point it out when this is making a change.
Yeah,
so
that's one of the changes right there. You'll see it'll shift through all these different sequences.
Interesting. So over a period of time, how long did this take? Do you remember?
It wasn't very long. This was just a short sequence that they came and and they gave us this. They told us they want their message out. I've never really cared about going public or even getting pictures of them, because it was always an inner thing for me. And but by their request, they said that they wanted us to go public.
They want advertising, right?
Yeah, they have a message, and they want to get it out, and it's timely because we are moving into these changes, and they want to let us know what's going on.
I think we need to move that a little bit further into it's kind of a night scene, so it's just dark black.
You can't really see the ship. You can just see it blinking. But what's funny is they would tell him ahead of time where they would be appearing, and he would set up for it and get his camera and zoom it out to the furthest extent, and it would come in and it would zip in, and you'd see it just sitting there blinking, and then it would start emitting this sound, and the sound is a very low droning noise, and it sounds much like the movie Contact. And we're having it analyzed right now by several people are looking at it, trying to get it separated and find out what kind of a numerical messages in there, or binary code, or whatever it is. So,
did they think that was the sound of the propulsion or something?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is real interesting. The funny thing about it is I asked them what they were doing over Portland State University, and they said higher learning. They said that we're working telepathically with the people there and helping them understand in their dreams and their sleep about this big reunion that's getting ready to happen.
Oh, when's that going to happen?
It's happening now, basically. They're here now. All these UFO sightings that are on the up are them coming. You're going to see them. They're appearing quite a bit lately, but you're going to see them in great numbers, in the next 2 years. It'll be undeniable.
Are they going to land on the White House lawn?
I doubt it. Problem is their reception they would get there is not really a healthy one. So.
That's true. That's true.
Because our policy right now is to shoot them down, incarcerate them, steal their technology, their weapons, and for our own power struggles. And they're not going to have anything to do that. They just take the high road.
Okay, I think, are we ready to run that clip now on the audio portion? Perhaps. Let's try it.
Because there was some substance or chemical or something in the water that was hazardous to humans. And there was a couple of newspaper articles around here that said it was like a black film or slime that you could see it under your skin. That's how you know there was that's how you know there was they had closed it.
So the UFOs now have, the aliens, do you have one particular individual that you communicate with?
There's a lot of them come in, a lot of different ones. Mainly, one guy's name is real interesting. His name's Hayog, and he actually comes from Orion. And he was the first one that I had contact. Hayog. It was H-A-O-G.
Did they tell you how to spell it too?
No. Their names are spelled with all these consonants in it, and you can't even pronounce them. So they'll give us something that sounds close to it, because they're very ancient. They're very old. Some of them are 1,000 years old, 1,200 years old. So they live pretty long. They've been overseeing us and watching us for a long time. But we're at a point now where we're ready as a civilization to make contact, and our technology is evolving so fast right now, and it's outrun our spirituality that we are setting ourselves up if we don't get our act together for a disaster.
And more repetition of what happened before.
Exactly, and they don't want to see that. They want to avoid that.
So how did you get the earth changes? How did that come about, that they gave you information about earth changes?
The funny thing about earth changes is, and this is hard to explain, although I was having visions of the masters, and actually Mary was appearing to me quite a bit, and Mary and Ezekiel, who is this pure golden being that I connected with in the near-death experience, I didn't know till later, was manifesting himself to me as just a pure golden light.
Well, now, is this the picture that we have here?
That's one of them, of Mary's energy coming down.
Maybe we can get our camera to
there.
Come in on this.
And there's a real large orange shaft of light going this way, and I was standing right here, and we have another picture, and it hit me right in the lower back. And I've had a disc problem there for years, and it just took care of it like that.
Really?
And
so tell the viewers what is on this picture now.
Well, this is what happened. This is facing west, and it's early in the morning. That camera is aiming west. The sun was in the east, low on the horizon behind the trees. There's no way it could have been a sunshot or a flare of the camera. And you can see the light bending. It's bending out in different directions. And everybody I've shown it said that the only way you could duplicate that really would put a large mirror up there or something.
Some reflective surface.
But there was 10 witnesses there at the time when she took the picture, when the energy came in, and you felt the energy come in.
Well, now you have you have Buddha in this picture, and Buddha is a statue that you have in the garden.
Yeah, it's right at the front of the center. We kind of honor all the faiths.
Okay.
Is what we try to do.
And then this Mary comes in.
Energy comes in. It was her energy.
But it looks like a statue too.
No, this is a statue. This is a statue of Mary, and this is a statue of Buddha.
And they're both
the energy is coming down
from
the top, And
all right, so it's just the red energy that...
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I thought that this Mary came in as a statue that
No.
from this... I
No.
thought, well, this looks like a hologram to me.
No,
So
those are just statues.
Okay, so these are in your garden, but the energy is the red line.
Yeah, it's descending down.
All right, got it.
And she caught on film, the woman there, she has the negatives and everything, and we could even we have testimony from her. She went on a couple other shows and gave testimony about
Isn't that interesting? Okay, well, we've got that clarified. All right, okay. Well, now you've written a couple of books about your experience. One is Becoming Gods, and you have a new cover that's going to be coming out on that one.
Yeah,
This is the first book, Becoming Gods. And then,
this is the new cover that'll be. It's going to be revised.
Oh, that's nice because it has that same image
picture
on there, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the camera's picking it up here. There we go. Yeah, that's going to be a great cover. That's good.
Yeah, I figure the cover alone will kind of get people's attention.
I think so. And then your
Open 'em
second book is Becoming Gods 2.
Mm-hmm.
That mean also?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is...
Well, he was the one that, Ezekiel gave me the title. He told me that it's no more nonsense time, that we have to own our divinity. And there is no separation in God. There's no separation in omnipresence. And that's what this book is about. It's to clear up all the misperceptions and things of the past and how we kind of forgot who we are and our divinity.
Well, you have, you write really well, and it really has a lot of things in there, so I'm hoping that the books do well for you. That's excellent. Okay, well, let's talk about the earth changes then. What kind of earth changes did they tell you about?
The changes right now, as of just a little while ago, there's been a major acceleration, and a lot of the prophecies they're talking about that we're going to unfold, like Casey and a lot of the other ones that are coming forward, actually have jumped forward in time. Edgar Casey. And,
Casey.
Yeah, and some of the other prophets that talked about a lot of these shifts and changes. In the first book, the information here was received in '82. And they talked about the warming waters, the polar caps would be melting, which is happening right now. They talked about the erratic weather, the storms, the flooding, all these things that were coming up, and an escalation in the earthquakes and volcanic activity, and shifts in consciousness as well. And they've hit them right on the button. The San Francisco earthquake, they gave me the exact time and date and magnitude of it. And I shared it with a lot of friends there, and the church I was involved in there, and I got kicked out.
You did?
Yeah, they got real upset about that.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy. Down boy.
Yeah, and I said, look, you have kind of a responsibility to the people here to let them know. And the minister there, and she said, I would be thrown right out of here. She said, I can't, that I would be teaching somewhere else real quick, so. But it's funny, they got so upset when I told them these things were going to happen. And they go, oh, they're just fear-based, they're this, they're that, and this group that and I was getting ready to leave and go to Washington at that time.
Washington, D.C.?
No, here.
Oh, Washington.
Here. Yeah, and up to build this center here. And it was really funny. And after the quake hit, I thought there'd be like a little bit of humble pie there, And I went back, and they're still angry, almost like I created it, saying, well, you were thinking about it, so you created. And I just said, look, I'm not that powerful. Nature has her own destiny, and she's healing herself, and she's moving forward. And we have the collective consciousness, which is changing and altering, and we have divine intervention. And all three of those are at play right now. And so as these changes unfold, they're going to unfold kind of a mixture of how much all this goes forward, or how much divine intervention there is, how many changes in the collective consciousness there are. So the UFOs, these beings, the power they have and their ships, they could take a continent and turn it upside down. They could move this planet, they could turn it into a cinder. Luckily, they're benevolent. They're very loving, very allowing, very forgiving. They're very benevolent. But they see that we have to evolve. And by taking away the wisdom gained from our self-created realities here and our experiences, we don't evolve. So they can't come in and fix everything and clean up everything, because it would stunt evolution, and that's not what they're about. They're about helping us to evolve.
So
and
we
go
have
forward.
we have to wake up on our own account.
Exactly. They can inspire us. If we are going forward and making the changes, they'll come in and there'll be more divine intervention. But they intervene to the level and this is kind of going to sound like a paradox, but it's not. We have to earn it. We have to earn the divine intervention, mainly because by evolving, by choosing to let go of our old wounds and patterns and frustrations and angers and warring and on each other and the planet, all these self-inflicted things we're setting into motion. We have to say, okay, we're done with this. We're done. We're ready for peace. We're ready to be kind to each other and the planet. And then the intervention is going to come in and help. And there is intervention right now, but it's inspirational. It's like telepathic. It's higher consciousness and energy coming in to help us make these changes and these shifts. And so they are helping on that level.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that if 1% of the population changes, that it will change the world.
You know, even less than that, if they hit super consciousness, basically, if 4 or 5 individuals hit Christ consciousness, you might say, or their vibration alone will affect the entire planet.
Well, I think that you do have leaders, so to speak, who would act as triggers.
Exactly.
But I think to have a mass population emerge into a new awareness would be impactful.
Even better.
Yeah,
exactly.
It would really be. And certainly you have those forces, such as the military, who would want to repress this because their agenda is very different. So how do they marry the evolutionary journey of the human to evolve to another state of consciousness that would be higher than where they are, with the military repressive, fight back, warring attitudes? How do they?
Yeah.
How does this happen?
Well, basically, when you add higher consciousness and energy to the pot, which they're bringing here, it creates an acceleration or a quickening. And that quickening will accelerate the action-reaction principle, or their karma, whatever you want to call it. It's going to accelerate that. It's also going to bring truth up. Truth, which has been pressurized and pushed down, is going to explode. The more they push it down, the bigger it's going to explode. That's happening right now. So really, it's like the old saying when they said, there shall be no rock left unturned. What they're saying is that all of your iniquities will be shouted from the rooftops. They're saying that all of our deeds and all the things we're trying to hide about ourselves and our actions are all going to be surfacing here real soon. And you can see that happening now. It's almost like instant karma time that we're going into. The reaction is almost moving instantaneous. And so you'll see somebody pull something and that is not in the highest and best good of humanity, the earth, and the reaction and the uncovering of that is going to almost be right around the corner because we're moving into these accelerated times.
What do they say, if anything, about the year 2000? Because everybody is getting, millennium fever. And you're hearing so many tales about 2000, 2003, 2012, 1999.
Yeah.
What information do you have to shed on that?
It doesn't look good, to be honest with you. It basically what they've been telling us is that right now, the way things are looking, that there are going to be, it's already happening, the El Nino and these massive storms that are coming up, all that's going to accelerate. There are going to be some great quakes hitting. There's so much pressure buildup. There's a huge magma flow underneath the West Coast right now, moving. The sun has lost its magnetics. A lot of people don't know that, but that's going on.
I heard the moon is moving further away from the Earth.
That might be happening too. I'm not sure about that. But we're having, the Earth's magnetics are jumping all over the place. And this is a little...
Or is it the sun that's moving further? One of them is moving further away.
Yeah, I've heard 10 different stories. There are so many people out there giving different things.
They're trying to nudge it back.
Yeah, and I've heard that actually the Earth is moving closer to the sun. I don't know. But, I've heard all of them.
That tells you the possible, isn't it?
Yeah, mainly we're going through change, undeniably. But basically what they've been saying is that, and now this is science, basically if 1/3 of the poles melt, we're going to have a 150-foot rise in the oceans. The poles are on rapid meltdown right now. The Larsen ice shelf is broken off. It's breaking off. Its chunks are falling off, bigger than states right now, and that's on the books right now. So that's undeniably, you're going to have a rise in the oceans. The rise in the oceans is going to create more pressure on the plates, and which will create more earthquake and volcanic activity. So everything is a system. It's all intermingled. At the beginning, the central sun, the scientists just found out there's these huge cosmic bursts of energy coming 7 billion light years away. At the center of our universe, these bursts are coming off from the central sun. These bursts come through, they hit our sun. It's an addition
solar
of
flares.
It creates solar flares. This is from the center of the universe, so our sun is reacting to that. And it's creating these huge CMEs, and these solar flares are moving off. It's reacting to that. The Earth is reacting to it also, and to the solar flares and those coronal mass ejections too. So everything is moving from the very center of our universe all the way through. Everything is expanding. Magnetics are changing. We're magnetic beings. We have energy bodies. They're changing. I mean, everything is moving right now. It starts on a real subtle note from the very center of our universe and moves through the universe. And we're adjusting to it. The people that move with this and flow with this and prepare spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and move with this flow will be fine. The ones that resist the flow are going to have a lot of problems. One of the main problems they're having right now is the fluctuations in the magnetic fields. Experiments with monkeys, when they subjected monkeys to all these fluctuations, what they got was everything from total comatose and lethargy to aggressive behavior to the point of self-mutilation. Now, this is an extreme. I don't think it's going to be that extreme, but we have to admit that these fluctuations and the fields of the Earth, which are fluctuating right now, are all having their impact. And you can see it in social consciousness or the cities, or you can see these. If we think we're a personality and a body and just an intellect, those are the areas that are just getting shaken right now. But if we know that we're really a soul, that we're an eternal being, and that's where we're drawing our consciousness from, we're going to maintain our consciousness through all these shifts.
We are just one, aren't we? We're all one.
Exactly.
The Earth, the human body, the planetary bodies, the whole universe really is one.
They sum it up so simply that they said that all of our ills would be solved with humanity. They said there's just 3 simple rules to live our lives by. And it goes back to the masters where they say, love God with all your heart, honor each individual as a unique expression of God, and behave as if the God in all life matters.
No.
It's that simple. I mean, it's not that complicated. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon to figure this out.
Very simple truth.
Exactly. And we've fallen so far from that intellectually, and what we're doing to each other, and it's just crazy in our economy, you know, all this legalized extortion going on, and it's just crazy on every level. The way we're treating each other right now on the planet is really crazy when you look at it from a higher level. And that craziness is going to get amplified, and it's going to come forward, and everybody's going to see it for what it is.
Compassion really needs to be there, doesn't it?
Exactly.
That is the key.
I think that is the key to heaven, love and compassion, and to get through these changes. And Mary was appearing to me quite a bit. In her message was, she said that basically that we have to establish our own God connection, each individual, and act upon that inner guidance without attachment or denial, and you'll get through all of this. The problem is the attachment and the denial, you know, and taking the time to make that connection.
Well, do you think these diseases that are becoming rampant on the Earth are part of the shifting of things, the energies that are shifting that are causing these new diseases? Everything
is mutating right now. Even all the lower forms are mutating. The frogs are mutating, the algae, the fish, things that breed in shallow water. The sun is putting out 2 new bands of energy right now on
the ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet, and that's causing a lot of problems. But it's shifting too. So it's everything is changing. It seems that right about when we're getting ready to get whacked by something, it gets taken care of somehow. It's like there's another energy that just kind of lifts us to the next stage. And if you just kind of lift with this energy, these things will miss you. But if you hang on to the old ways and the old beliefs, they'll get you. You know,
Marshall McLuhan had an interesting statement when he was alive, and he would say, many of us are living in bonanza land.
Yeah.
We're way back with the cowboys and Indians and the bonanza land, living in yesterday rather than moving forward. I thought he was really quite profound. He's also the one that said the medium is the message. And that being television, we're part of that. Medium is the message.
It is.
So it just seems like there are all these changes that are occurring. I do see people moving, changing, shifting in their own self-awareness, becoming more cognizant of events that are occurring in their lives, trying to find some semblance of order for themselves out of all of this, what makes sense for them, that they can adopt a new way to live with the changes. I mean, I do think that there is an awareness.
Yeah.
In many areas, and I'm not saying this is totally across the planet, but there are pockets of people, and they must be the catalyst for all of this. Would you say this?
Oh, yeah. I think that's happening everywhere. There's a lot of... it's nice because right now we're linking up with all these major centers of light, and right now with other light centers and other institutes. So we're all linking up right now and just maintaining the basics. And
what about alien bases around the world? There's some places around the world that have, I've heard the Antarctic and Brazil and Paraguay, and even in outside of Tibet and the mountains in the Himalayas.
Most of those bases are all benevolent. There's a couple problem areas that have been cleaned up, basically, that they're having some groups that were here that weren't really positive. But
so they're doing their own cleanup of their own non-entities. So
exactly. They're almost enforcing, it sounds like a paradox again, they're almost enforcing a non-interference policy. With the people that are interfering, they're saying enough. I mean, even the astral levels, the lower levels where you would go, like where malevolent spirits are, confused spirits, those are being cleaned up too. So all levels, you can't get away from the higher consciousness and energy and this shift that we're going through right now. You can't fly off to another planet and dig in, it's a universal thing. So
interesting. So we just need to stay tuned, don't we?
Exactly. Stay tuned and without attachment and denial, make the changes.
Have no attachment to the outcome. That's a really good thing.
Yeah. If you get a message that says go, go.
There you go.
Pack up, go.
There you go.
If that's what you need to do.
Safe places to live. Is this a good place?
Well, I don't know what your sea level is here. You're pretty low.
Yeah,
so you might want to go up.
Might go up.
Go up for the high ground.
Great. James, thank you very much for joining me on Evolving Ideas and sharing your knowledge and experience. It was wonderful having you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
To my viewers, thanks for tuning in. And join me next time when we explore another avenue of our universe and our relationship to it. I'm Elaine Smitha.